Earlier before the break, we were talking about pensions and what people should do. It is one of the great retirement benefits for many teachers, having that pension that creates reliable income in the future. The problem is with little and unpredictable cost of living adjustments, what strategies should teachers implement to plan for a higher cost of living in the future?
Well, we can take the extreme position of what happens if there's going to be no cost of living, which a lot of retired teachers in Ohio have already experienced that. Well, there was a 1.5% increase that was just approved for them, and that's nice for them. But what about the people that are considering retirement with either presently or in the next few years? Will there be a provision for them under this cost of living adjustment? And the answer is up in the air on that. So we talked about PLOP withdrawals, and a PLOP withdrawal gives you a realistic opportunity to kind of plan and set money aside in an investment fund that you control for future cost of living increases. So if STRS never comes to the table with something for you, you're being proactive and you're setting yourself up for retirement success because you have money that's in a separate fund that you can use to fund those cost increases. The other thing that we're going to talk about this is with the elimination of the windfall election, teachers whose spouses who have earned Social Security benefits, they now have the opportunity to collect that. And a lot of teachers have worked enough outside of the education profession to have a Social Security benefit, and that money can be payable to them. Those are two things that could help offset cost of living adjustments. But the bottom line is, if you turn on a single life annuity and there's no cost of living adjustment, and your monthly pension is $6,000 a month under a defined benefit setup, that's what you're going to get your entire retired life. And I really think you're running the risk of having issues that will cause your money to where your income won't be enough to cover future living costs. Because one thing none of us know is how long we're going to live, but with life expectancies continuing to become greater, you have to provide for the longevity risk versus the investment risk, because if you live to be 90 or older, I think the inflation risk on your money could be very difficult to overcome.
And, that can be accomplished if you have, again, a 403B, maybe you have money in the 457, you can utilize that as your future pay raise account. So compartmentalize, part of that money, use an investment vehicle that you could ultimately turn on additional income in the future. Equities can be great for long-term growth if you have, 5 or 10 years before you need that. You might have, annuities as an example can provide predictable future income regardless of what the market performance does. We talked in a previous segment, Dave, about the option of considering taking a partial lump sum payment. If cost of living increase is important to you, again, if you take a partial lump sum payment, it's going to permanently reduce your monthly check that you have. And, one of the things that I want to be cautious about is there's not necessarily anything wrong with taking a PLOP, but, if inflation and fighting that off in the long term is important to you, make sure that, again, you take a portion of that money and compartmentalize it for the future to help be able to give yourself a pay raise if the cost of living increases don't keep up with what true inflation is. And it's really no surprise that they kind of monkey with those numbers. I mean, they monkey with the numbers when we think about Social Security and how they calculate the formula. And I know inflation is kind of the real deal. Just go out to eat somewhere, try to get a ticket to a concert in town, or something at one of the playhouses, and you'll see how expensive it is. When you also look at it, we talk about taking health insurance into consideration. When we think about health insurance, you think about, the pre-65 health insurance, navigating, what your options are there. You want to make sure that you have money and you take into consideration what is going to be your benefits after age 65 if you're married with a spouse, navigating that Medicare landscape, all the way down to the end of figuring out how to protect your assets if, you or a loved one need some type of long-term care. Here in America's Retirement Headquarters, Dave, one of the things that we talk about is we talk about that comprehensive plan, having America's Medicare Associates take a look at the areas, having somebody like you that's married and also has spent time in the teaching profession, looking at the planning aspect of it. But another area, where we're looking at that comprehensive approach and helping to battle those cost of living increases is looking at the biggest debt I think that most retirees have today, and that's the tax man. So that's why we have retirement tax partners there. Looking at the tax planning aspect to try to free up more money. We have just seen over time and time again, many retirees overpay in taxes and don't even realize it. And in many cases, they do it voluntarily just because they don't have a system that's looking at what can be done each year to minimize the taxes that you pay now and or in the future. This is an area that not only if you're within 5 years of retirement time, this is an area that even younger teachers should be looking at, is how to save and invest for the future to keep the government away from your money and as well. Even at the tax issues, like if something happens and you would pass away, what is the widower's trap and how will tax rates be different maybe when there's one individual versus another. And the last thing I would say is when you look at retirement, I think the advice that I could give would be to look at being a little bit flexible in how your spending habits are. So cost of living, I think, is important, but it's my experience in helping and working with hundreds, if not thousands, of retirees over the years, that in those first beginning years, you're probably going to spend a little bit more money. You're in those go-go years, right? You're spending more time with your kids. You're taking grandkids on those trips and vacations that you wanted to do. But as you get later in life, your spending habits may actually start to come down a little bit unless there's a healthcare related expenses. In developing a plan, I know through the planning software that we utilize, we allow our clients to look at different scenarios. Again, another scenario to consider is if you have money in the stock market and one of those 457s or 403bs or IRA accounts, in those years where the market doesn't cooperate as much as possible, maybe those are the years that you don't spend as much on those extra things that you wanted. Maybe that's not the year that you add on that house project that you want or get that new vehicle. You wait until you're exceeding your goals and make sure that you're on an annual basis, you're stress testing your plan, because it's our desire to try to keep in that 90+% probability of success when you're looking at, being able to make sure that you have enough money that lasts the rest of your lifetime and you're able to keep up with those cost of living adjustments along the way, because the standard retirement benefits for teachers may not keep up with what true inflation is.
Absolutely. And the other things that I would add in regards to when a teacher retires, most school districts in Ohio have a provision where they buy back your sick leave that you did not use while you were working, and that money can be put into a tax advantage 403B or 457. And many times when a teacher retires, the school system will want to buy out the remainder of their contract. So when the school years are now in Ohio, for a lot of systems are ending in May, the school district is still on the hook to pay the teacher in June, July, and August, which then leads into the next fiscal year for the school system. They're offering buyouts of the contract where that money can be put into a tax-advantaged vehicle. So if you're looking at a PLOP and it makes sense to do that, you have significant sick days that are being bought out, and you have a contract buyout plus any savings that you have already in the 403 or 457. This could end up creating a fairly large bucket of money that you can count on in retirement to help offset some of those future costs.
With pensions having gone all by the wayside for most workers out there, the appeal of income for life is certainly well known. But income for lifestyle is also important. You want to factor in that things will cost more in the future. The team at America's Retirement Headquarters, they can help you with that, how to supplement and create those inflation-adjusted sources of income. Give a call, set up a time to speak with them, 419-794-3030, or you can go online to the website and also reserve your space for that event coming up on November 11th. That is at arhq.com.